The rain fell in soft, steady sheets, blurring the world into muted colors. A woman sat alone at a bus stop, her wedding dress soaked and clinging to her like a memory she couldn't peel away. Her hair, once carefully pinned and perfect, now hung in damp waves. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, and her bouquet, white peonies tied in satin, rested limply in her lap, petals wilting with every passing minute. She didn't cry. Not anymore. Her eyes were hollow, staring out at the road as cars passed without slowing. People glanced her way, then looked away just as quickly, unsure, uncomfortable, unwilling to stop for a ghost of a day that had clearly gone terribly wrong. One teenager lifted their phone, snapped a photo, and whispered something to their friend before laughing and walking on. Still, she sat there. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. The rain didn't let up, and neither did the silence pressing down on her like wet concrete. Her phone had died hours ago. No ride. No calls. No home she wanted to go back to. Just silence, and the sick ache of being left behind. Then, a sound. A car, a sleek black one, slowed as it approached the bus stop. Its tinted windows and polished frame stood out against the gray drizzle and broken pavement. It came to a gentle stop just in front of her, engine purring low. The passenger window rolled down. She turned her head slowly. Behind the wheel sat a man. Mid to late 30s, maybe. Dark suit, open collar. No umbrella. His face was striking, sharp, clean-shaven, but it wasn't his features that held her gaze. It was his eyes. They were tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. A deeper kind, the kind that comes from grief that's never been spoken aloud. He looked at her for a moment, and she waited for the judgment, the pity, the inevitable question. Are you okay? She wasn't. But he didn't ask that. Instead, his voice was low. Steady. Do you need help? For the first time all day, Eloise blinked. And for just a second, she forgot the pain long enough to feel something else. Suspicion, curiosity, or maybe, just maybe hope. Have you ever seen someone walk away from love at the very last minute? Would you take them back, or walk away too? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're new here, subscribe for more love stories every week. Before we begin, this is love from my heart to you. Or maybe, just a small love letter to say thank you. Once upon a time, this channel fell in love. Not with fairy tales, but with the people who believe in them. The ones who cry during the quiet parts. Who pause to feel a heartbeat between the lines. Who still believe that love, even complicated, flawed, impossible love, can be real. Love Enchanted was created for you. The romantic. The hopeful. The heart that's been broken and still dares to open again. So if you're here, you're not just watching a story. You're part of one. Stay with us, for stories that ache, heal, and remind us why love is always worth the risk. The soft hum of string instruments filled the air, blending with the scent of roses and jasmine that lined the edges of the garden chapel. Sunlight filtered through hanging lanterns, casting warm golden hues across a crowd dressed in gentle pastels. At the center of it all stood Eloise Marin, 28, radiant in a lace gown that she'd spent months hand-stitching with her grandmother's help. Her fingers, though steady, clenched the bouquet tighter than she meant to. But her eyes shimmered with anticipation. This was the moment she had imagined since she was a little girl, walking down the aisle to marry Matthew, the man she believed was her forever. Her friends whispered excitedly, dabbing away tears. Her grandmother, seated in the front row, beamed with pride. But something was wrong. The officiant checked his watch. Then again. The musicians exchanged uncertain glances. The whispering in the crowd shifted, not joyful now, but questioning. The groom was late. At first, Eloise dismissed it. Maybe traffic. Maybe nerves. He wasn't perfect, but he loved her. He said so just last night. Didn't he? 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Then her younger sister, Camille, stepped into view, walking briskly toward her from the chapel entrance. Her face was pale. In her hand, she held a phone. Eloise's heart dropped into her stomach before Camille even reached her. "He's not coming," Camille whispered. Her voice cracked. "He left this." She handed Eloise the phone. A text. Plain. Heartless. "I'm sorry. I can't do this. Please don't hate me." No name. No explanation. No closure. Eloise didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just stood there, bouquet in hand, as the weight of her dress suddenly felt crushing. The warmth of the garden turned to fire, and the eyes on her burned. Some shocked. Some sympathetic. Others, judging, already crafting stories. She took a step back. Then, another. And then she ran. Down the aisle she just dreamed of walking, through the gate, past confused guests calling her name. She didn't stop. Didn't slow. Her heels clacked against pavement until she reached the edge of the road. She didn't know where she was going. She just needed to leave. The city blurred around her as she wandered, streets she didn't recognize, corners that felt colder than they should on a summer afternoon. Finally, exhausted and lost, she sat down at a lonely bus stop miles away from the chapel. Her dress was dirted at the hem. Her bouquet hung loosely in her hand like it had given up, too. She stared out at nothing, blank and motionless, while the world moved around her. A child pointed and asked, "Mommy, is that a princess?" The mother tugged the child along, whispering something under her breath. Someone across the street pulled out their phone and snapped a picture, chuckling. Still, Eloise sat. Her phone battery had died hours ago. She had no wallet, no car, and no one she wanted to call. For the first time in years, she felt completely alone. The wedding she had dreamed about since childhood had turned into a headline waiting to happen. Her fiancé was gone, without a fight, without a word in person. All that remained was a text message and a day soaked in silence. Cars passed. People walked. A few glanced her way, pity briefly crossing their expressions, but not one of them stopped. She didn't expect them to. She was invisible now. A forgotten story. A bride without a wedding. Callum Hayes hadn't planned to drive through town that day. He hated crowds, avoided public places, and rarely left his secluded lakeside estate. But an urgent meeting with the director of a youth shelter he quietly funded had brought him back into the noise, something he hadn't done willingly in years. Now, with his meeting behind him, he was trying to get home as quickly as possible, eager to return to his silence. But then, he saw her. At the edge of a rundown bus stop sat a woman in a soaked wedding gown, bouquet clutched to her lap like something sacred. People passed without stopping. One man tossed a crumpled napkin at her feet as he dug into his sandwich. Callum's hands tightened around the wheel. He recognized that kind of stillness, the kind that didn't beg for attention but screamed in silence. He slowed, then drove past. He cursed himself. He didn't do this. He wasn't someone who inserted himself into other people's tragedies. He barely knew how to handle his own. But something in her expression haunted him. He turned around. When he pulled up in front of her, she didn't move. He rolled the passenger window down and leaned toward it, rain tapping softly against the car roof. "I can take you somewhere," he said. His voice was calm, deep, almost reluctant. She turned slowly toward him. Their eyes met. Her face was pale. Her eyeliner had bled into her skin. But there was something clear in her gaze, something that told him she didn't scare easily. "I'm fine," she said, though her voice betrayed the lie. He didn't press. Just nodded once, respectfully, and drove off again. 15 minutes passed. Then 30. But when Callum looped back through the same road, half expecting her to be gone, he found her still there, curled tighter now, bouquet limp on the bench beside her. The rain had worsened. He pulled up again. She didn't turn. "I'm not trying to take advantage," he said gently. "Just offering you shelter." She hesitated. "My phone died," she murmured, finally. "I don't even know where I am." "North edge of Brooklyn," he said. "Not the best place to wait all night." Another beat. Then she opened the door and got in. She didn't speak. Neither did he. The car was quiet, save for the soft hum of the heater and the squeak of windshield wipers. She stared out the window. He glanced at her only once, just long enough to see her hands trembling in her lap. He wanted to ask what happened. He didn't. Instead, he kept driving. 10 minutes later, they passed a lit-up motel. "I can drop you here," he offered. "If you'd prefer." She looked at the neon sign. Then, at her dress. "I have no money," she said flatly. "No ID. No purse. Just this stupid dress." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. Callum said nothing for a moment. He looked ahead, then turned off the main road and onto a quieter one that curved into the woods. "I have space," he said at last. "You can stay the night. If you're comfortable." Silence. "You don't know me," she said. "I'm not asking you to." More silence. Then, finally, "One night." He nodded. "One night." They drove the rest of the way in silence. As the car curved along the tree-lined road, Eloise slowly started to exhale. Not because she felt safe, but because for the first time in hours, she wasn't being watched, pitied, or ridiculed. The man next to her wasn't trying to fix her. He wasn't even trying to understand her. He was simply there. And somehow, in this strange, rain-soaked detour from the worst day of her life, that was enough. The road wound through dense trees before opening up to reveal a secluded lakefront home, glass, wood, and stone tucked against the curve of still water. The sky was dark now, heavy with clouds, and the house sat silent like a secret it had long since given up trying to hide. Callum didn't speak as he opened the door and led Eloise inside. The place was striking in its simplicity. Clean lines, natural light, but emotionally sterile. There were no family photos on the walls. No signs of laughter or life. Just carefully arranged furniture and the faint smell of cedar and cold air. He gestured toward the hallway. Guest rooms down there. Bathrooms across from it. Towels in the closet. She nodded silently, cradling her damp bouquet like it was a fragile part of her dignity she wasn't ready to let go of. Before she disappeared into the hallway, she paused. "I'm Eloise," she said softly. He met her eyes for the first time since they entered. "Callum." That was all. The first night passed quietly. She showered, dried her dress as best she could, and slept in a borrowed t-shirt left folded at the edge of the guest bed. The next morning, there was food on the table, scrambled eggs, toast, and tea. He wasn't there, just a note, "Eat if you're hungry. Take your time." She did. For the next few days, they barely spoke. Eloise wandered the property. She discovered a neglected garden at the side of the house, overgrown hydrangeas tangled in weeds, a forgotten bench split with moss. She began clearing it out, bit by bit, without asking. She needed something to touch, something real, something broken she could try to put right. Callum watched from inside sometimes, sipping coffee but never interrupting. He gave her space, more than anyone ever had. No questions. No pity. No forced comfort. At night, they shared brief conversations over tea. Nothing heavy. Nothing raw. Just the kind of words people say when they're too tired to lie but too guarded to tell the truth. "Why flowers?" he asked once. She looked out the window. "Because they bloom anyway. Even after storms." He didn't respond, but his eyes lingered on her a little longer that evening. On the fifth day, while searching for pruning shears in the hallway closet, Eloise opened the wrong cabinet. Inside was a dusty old frame tucked behind stacks of books. A woman. A child. Both smiling. Both long gone. It didn't take much to guess who they were. She closed the door quietly and said nothing. That night, she left a single white lily at his door. No note. No explanation. Just the flower, simple, elegant, and symbolic. The next morning, she found a folded blanket on the bench in the garden. It hadn't been there before. And beside it, a cup of tea, still warm. It wasn't an invitation. But it wasn't silence, either. That evening, he joined her outside. They sat without speaking for a while, watching the lake shimmer beneath the pale light of dusk. "My wife's name was Marissa," he said at last. "My son was Leo." Eloise didn't look at him. She didn't speak. "I was driving," he added. "That night." His voice didn't shake. But something inside him did. Still, she said nothing. Just reached down and pulled a weed from the soil, placing it in the pile she'd been working on all week. He glanced at her, and in her silence, he found what he hadn't realized he needed. Presence, not pity. A witness, not a savior. That was the night something shifted. They didn't become lovers. Not yet. Not even friends, fully. But two people who were once strangers had become something else entirely. A quiet refuge for each other. A breath when the air still hurt. A place to begin again. Have you ever met someone who seemed broken, until they helped you heal? Tell us below, and don't forget to like this video if this story is pulling at your heart. The days turned slower. Softer. Eloise's garden took shape, a curved path outlined in stone, new beds carved into the soil. Lavender. Marigold. Lily of the valley. Each bloom carried its own story, its own silent redemption. Callum watched her quietly, often from the porch with coffee in hand, sometimes from the kitchen window with a half-finished thought on his lips. One evening, he brought dinner to the garden, a homemade pasta dish Eloise hadn't expected from someone who looked more at home in boardrooms than kitchens. They sat on the porch steps, sharing the meal and watching the sky shift pink. Halfway through, Callum placed his fork down. "I don't sleep much," he said. "The dreams always bring them back." She looked at him, waiting. "My wife and son died 5 years ago. A car crash. I was driving." The words hung between them, like a wound he hadn't let bleed in years. "We were heading back from a family trip. I'd had too much coffee, was speeding to beat the rain. I looked down for 2 seconds, to change the music." He exhaled. The sound cracked at the edges. 2 seconds, he repeated. That's all it took. Eloise didn't interrupt. Didn't offer sympathy. Just listened. "They said it wasn't my fault. That the brakes failed. But it doesn't matter. They were in my car. I was supposed to protect them. Instead." Silence followed. A long, aching kind. Eloise's hand hovered over his for a moment, then rested beside it. Not touching, just close enough for him to feel she was there. "That's why I built this place," he said. "To disappear." He didn't cry. She didn't force him to feel more than he already had. But something shifted between them that night, not loud or immediate. Just a deep recognition. Two people haunted by loss, finally sharing the weight of it. Over the following weeks, their routines blurred into quiet companionship. They talked over long meals, shared sunrises by the lake, and wandered through the garden she built with her hands and he watered in silence. They began laughing more. Not often, but enough. Once, she caught him staring, really staring, as she read on the porch swing, hair pulled up messily, glasses sliding down her nose. She didn't say anything. Neither did he. But the look lingered. And so did the feeling. Then everything changed. It started with a knock on the door. Callum opened it to find a young man with a smug grin, holding a camera and a notepad. "Mr. Hayes, care to comment on the rumors? The internet's going wild over the runaway bride you're hiding out here." Callum's expression turned cold. "Get off my property." The man smirked, already backing away. "Didn't peg you for the romantic type. Good luck explaining this one." Within hours, the story spread. Abandoned bride living with reclusive millionaire? The headline was plastered across local blogs and social media feeds. Eloise's photo, taken secretly at the garden fence, sat next to Callum's old headshot from Forbes. She found out when her florist friend from town called, panicked. "Is it true?" they asked. "Are you involved?" Eloise's heart dropped. The blood drained from her face. She ran to the living room, where Callum stood, his laptop open, jaw tight. "Did you know?" she asked. "They came by. I told them nothing." She sank onto the couch, breath shaking. "I can make this go away," he said quietly. "I still have contacts. I can bury it." And that was the moment something in her cracked. "Of course you can," she snapped. "Because that's what you do, right? Fix everything. Hide the mess. Manage the headlines." His brows furrowed. "I'm trying to protect you." She stood. "I didn't ask for protection. I didn't ask for pity. That's not what this is. Isn't it?" She shot back. "You saved the broken girl on the side of the road. Congratulations. Do I get to thank you publicly, or will your PR team handle it?" His voice rose, controlled, but sharp. "You think I did all this for image? I think I've been living in someone else's shadow, in someone else's pain, and now I'm a story again. That's what I think." He stared at her, stunned. "You're not a charity project," he said, voice low. "Then stop treating me like one." She turned, walked to her room, and packed in silence. By nightfall, she was gone. Eloise pushed open the familiar glass door of her florist shop and stepped inside. The scent of fresh blooms greeted her like an old friend, but today, it felt like a stranger, distant and cold. The bell jingled overhead, but no warmth sparked in her chest. The vibrant colors of roses, lilies, and daisies that once inspired her now seemed muted, like faded memories pressed between pages of a forgotten book. She moved through the shop methodically, arranging flowers for a wedding order, an irony that wasn't lost on her. Each bouquet felt heavier than the last, weighted with ghosts she couldn't shake. Every ribbon tied, every petal placed, reminded her of the dress she'd worn, the aisle she'd walked away from, the life she thought she had. Her hands trembled slightly, and for a moment, she paused, closing her eyes against the sting of tears. The shop was her sanctuary, or at least it had been. But now, it was just another place where the past shadowed every moment. Weeks slipped by. Callum didn't call. He didn't text. No messages, no inquiries. And she didn't reach out either. Neither of them crossed the distance that now stretched between their worlds. Still, some nights, Eloise found herself staring out her shop window, watching the sunset bleed into the horizon, wondering if he was doing the same, alone in his quiet home by the lake. She missed him. Not in the way one misses a rescuer, a savior, or someone who had fixed a broken moment. No. She missed him because he was the first person who hadn't tried to change her, who hadn't demanded explanations or pity. He was a mirror reflecting the parts of herself she didn't want to see, the pain, the guilt, the fragility. And strangely, that reflection made her feel less alone. One afternoon, while scrolling through her phone absent-mindedly, Eloise paused on a news clip. It was Callum. He stood in front of a newly built center, its sign reading, the Brooklyn Grief Recovery Initiative. He spoke quietly, explaining how the center would help people facing loss and trauma, offering support, therapy, and community. Behind him, in the distance, a wide field bloomed with wildflowers. A small sign planted in the earth read, "In loving memory of Marissa and Leo." Eloise's breath caught. The field looked like a promise. A place where pain could grow into something new. A place where healing could begin. She felt a flicker of something unfamiliar. Hope. Not yet peace. Not yet forgiveness. But hope. The kind of hope that whispered, maybe this isn't the end of her story. The morning sunlight spilled softly through the large windows of Eloise's flower shop. She unlocked the door, expecting the quiet solitude she'd grown accustomed to, but stopped short. Every surface, tables, shelves, even the floor near the entrance, was covered in fresh flowers. Bouquets of all kinds, delicate peonies, soft lilies, wild daisies, and lavender sprigs arranged with quiet care. Each bouquet was tied with a simple ribbon and attached to a small, handwritten note. Eloise's fingers trembled as she picked up the first note. Her breath caught when she read the words. "For the first dinner." She remembered the night, the tentative smiles, the awkward silences, the beginning of something neither of them expected. She moved to the next bouquet, reading another note. For the lily on my doorstep. A gentle reminder of the white lily she'd left at his door. A fragile bridge between two wounded souls. Another note caught her eye. For the silence that saved us both. Memories of quiet moments spent side by side in his garden, where no words were needed, and healing began in the space between breaths. Her eyes welled with tears, a mix of surprise, gratitude, and a warmth she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. Before she could collect herself, the shop door opened softly. Callum stepped inside, holding a single peony, her favorite flower. He smiled gently, eyes carrying the weight of all they'd been through. I don't want to save you, he said quietly, voice steady but sincere. I want to stand beside you while we both save ourselves. Eloise's tears spilled freely now. But this time, they were different. Tears of relief, of hope, of a heart finally ready to trust again. She smiled through her tears, stepping forward to meet him halfway. This time, she wasn't broken, waiting to be fixed. This time, she was whole, and choosing love not because she needed rescue, but because it felt like home. Sometimes, the moments that break us open are the very ones that create space for healing to begin. Eloise and Callum's story isn't about fairy tale rescues or perfect happy endings. It's about two flawed, wounded souls who found a way to be present for each other, not to fix or save, but simply to hold space. Love, they learned, isn't about being each other's hero. It's about being the place where someone can finally come undone, where the cracks aren't hidden but embraced, and where those broken pieces can slowly, gently be put back together. Their journey is a symbol of second chances, how heartbreak can lead to growth, and how grief, when shared, can transform into purpose. It's a reminder that sometimes the people we think will break us are the ones who help us build something stronger than we ever imagined. Because love isn't just about finding someone who completes you. It's about finding someone who accepts your whole story, your light and your shadows, and chooses to stay. And in that choice, two broken lives become a new kind of whole. Would you let someone into your life again after heartbreak? Do you believe two wounded souls can build a whole love? Drop a comment below, and if this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.